They told us parasites were just a biological nuisance, something found in dirty water, or a problem for travelers in foreign lands. But what if the truth is far darker? What if the greatest infection in human history wasn't a disease of the body, but a deliberate act of control? A global parasitic manipulation orchestrated by shadow governments to keep humanity asleep, divided, and dependent. The idea sounds impossible, even insane, but buried across decades of leaked experiments, declassified documents, and biological oddities lies a chilling pattern. A pattern suggesting that microscopic organisms may be the key to controlling thought, emotion, and behavior, and that someone somewhere has known this for a very long time. Our story begins in the late 19th century, when early microbiologists like Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch first identified the invisible world of parasites. While public science was still discovering germ theory, secret societies within imperial powers began to see potential. What if microscopic life could be used not to heal but to influence? The British Empire, the German Kaiser's intelligence, and early American industrial elites all funded quiet research into what they called behavioral bioagents. Parasites that could alter animal instincts were studied in deep secrecy. The goal? To design a living control mechanism that could spread invisibly, rewrite the host's biological rhythms, and induce compliance. By 1917, as World War I raged across Europe, rumors spread among soldiers about the gray sickness, a strange fatigue that seemed to afflict certain battalions. Later autopsies found parasitic larvae in the nervous systems of some soldiers, parasites that didn't match any known taxonomy. Declassified military records from both German and British intelligence describe experiments using microspores meant to suppress aggression or heighten suggestibility. Officially, these were dismissed as propaganda. Unofficially, the research continued under the veil of what would later become the MK projects. In the 1930s, the Rockefeller Foundation quietly funded a global health initiative to eradicate tropical diseases. But behind closed doors, documents revealed an obsession with Toxoplasma gondii, a parasite known to alter behavior in animals, causing rodents to lose their fear of predators. The same foundation later created networks of laboratories that tested behavioral effects on human subjects, including prisoners, mental patients, and military volunteers. Many of these programs were folded into the U.S. government's biological research arm after World War II, as part of Operation Paperclip. Nazi parasitologists who had experimented on prisoners were brought to America, their findings reclassified under national security. By 1949, the newly formed CIA saw the potential. The MKUltra program, remembered today for its LSD and hypnosis experiments, had a lesser-known branch called MK Paragon. Its purpose was simple but monstrous: to find ways to biologically suppress free will using parasitic infection vectors. Reports suggest the use of engineered protozoa that could be ingested through food or water, targeting neurotransmitter regulation. In other words, parasites designed to make people docile, compliant, and easily led. Field tests allegedly took place in small American towns in the 1950s, disguised as public health trials. Cases of sudden fatigue, chronic depression, and autoimmune responses surged, and yet, the Centers for Disease Control classified them as unrelated local outbreaks. During the 1960s, new reports surfaced from the Soviet Union and China about similar research. Soviet Project Mycelium focused on fungal parasitic hybrids capable of affecting dopamine production. In 1966, the CIA's own files mention psychoparasitic warfare and the fear that enemy nations might already be experimenting with behavioral modulation spores. The space race was as much about biology as rockets. It's rumored that early satellite launches carried spore samples to test how long they could survive cosmic radiation, suggesting that the real Cold War may have included a biological component no one dared to admit. Then came the 1970s, the decade of environmental awareness. But while the public protested pollution, corporations quietly expanded pesticide production. These chemicals were supposedly to protect crops from parasites. But hidden within certain patents are mentions of symbiotic microflora enhancement agents, meaning engineered parasites designed to coexist with humans and livestock. Declassified minutes from a 1973 meeting of the Trilateral Commission mention mass biological acclimation through controlled exposure. This is where the shadow government theory deepens. They weren't trying to kill us. They were conditioning us, slowly, generation by generation, to live with something inside us. In the 1980s, reports of chronic fatigue syndrome and mysterious autoimmune disorders skyrocketed. The CDC struggled to find a cause. Some whistleblowers claimed it was connected to a parasitic infiltration of the lymphatic system, the body's own defense being quietly sabotaged. Around the same time, high-profile global summits, like the Bilderberg meetings, began emphasizing population health management and neurobehavioral stability. Insiders say these were coded discussions about maintaining psychological equilibrium in a world of growing rebellion and technology. The best way to keep peace, they said, was to dull the inner fire of the human spirit. By the 1990s, the Internet era was dawning, but so was something else: global food standardization. Genetically modified foods entered the mainstream, and with them, new vectors. Some fringe scientists began warning that these modified crops carried hidden symbiotic parasites meant to interact with the human microbiome. A few claimed to have isolated foreign DNA sequences in processed foods that appeared to be parasitic genetic code. Their research was quickly discredited or buried. Around this time, pharmaceutical giants began releasing powerful antiparasitic drugs but promoted them only for animals, not humans. Why? Because, according to leaked emails from insiders, widespread human deparasitization would destabilize the behavioral field. In other words, removing the parasites might wake people up. The year 2001 marked a turning point. After the trauma of global terrorism, governments began mass inoculation programs under the banner of safety. Few noticed that many vaccines and food supplements began including nanocarriers for bioactive delivery. Some analysts have argued that these carriers weren't just for medicine, they were ideal delivery systems for engineered microparasites, invisible to standard tests. From 2003 to 2008, lab reports surfaced showing unexplained biological filaments in human blood samples, later labeled by online researchers as Morgellons fibers. Official agencies denied their existence, but independent labs found they contained DNA that did not match any known organism on Earth. As we entered the 2010s, the theory grew darker. Intelligence leaks hinted at a global biological feedback system. The idea that parasite-induced changes in neurotransmitters could make populations more predictable. Platforms like Facebook and TikTok were built not just for data mining, but for behavior mapping. By correlating biometric and behavioral data, the shadow governments could measure how their biological influence was performing. Anomalies, people who thought differently, resisted groupthink, or displayed psychic tendencies were flagged. The parasites, according to whistleblower reports, suppressed not only emotional extremes but also higher cognitive and intuitive functions. Those capable of sensing more, empathic individuals, remote viewers, lucid dreamers, found their gifts dimming as if something was feeding on their potential. Then came 2020, a year of global panic, fear, and biological obsession. While the world focused on viruses, few noticed the increasing documentation of microparasites resistant to all known treatments. Under the microscope, researchers described them as almost mechanical, capable of reorganizing tissue patterns and forming networks inside the bloodstream. Some called them smart parasites, organisms that seemed to react to electromagnetic frequencies, even Wi-Fi and 5G signals. If true, this suggested a horrifying possibility. The shadow governments had merged parasitology with nanotechnology. Humans were being transformed into biological receivers, each one tuned to specific frequency patterns that could modulate emotion, compliance, and perception. By 2025, as surveillance and biotechnology merge, the theory reaches its final stage, that the parasites are no longer merely biological. They are semi-sentient symbionts that merge with the nervous system to create a global hive of docile hosts. Hidden within neural pathways, they suppress rebellion, creativity, and higher consciousness, the very traits that once defined humanity. The elites, however, maintain a different strain, one that enhances cognition, extends life, and grants immunity to emotional manipulation. This duality ensures control. A population lulled into obedience while the few retain godlike awareness. Looking ahead, the signs intensify. Reports emerge of deworming compounds quietly disappearing from pharmacies, natural remedies restricted, and new bio-optimization programs launched by tech billionaires. They claim to offer health and longevity, but what if it's the next phase of infection? A parasite that no longer weakens the body but merges with it, reshaping humanity into a controllable collective organism. The agenda might not be to destroy us, but to transform us into something predictable, connected, and easily managed. A world where thought itself is synchronized through invisible biology. And yet, there are cracks in the plan. Some people report sudden bursts of clarity after fasting, detoxification, or intense meditation, as if something inside them temporarily loses its grip. Shamans and mystics throughout history spoke of energetic parasites feeding on emotion, describing them as entities of hunger and shadow. Maybe they were always here. Maybe the shadow governments didn't create them. Maybe they simply learned to use them. The line between biological and spiritual parasitism might be thinner than we think. Every fear, every addiction, every wave of despair could be the byproduct of something ancient, something that learned to feed on human potential. As we move beyond 2030, the battle may no longer be between governments and people, but between the infected and the awakened. Those who cleanse themselves, who break the biological chains, may rediscover dormant abilities, intuition, telepathy, collective empathy. The human mind, free of interference, could become something extraordinary. But until then, the invisible war continues, beneath the skin and behind the headlines. Every craving, every emotion, every thought that isn't yours might be the whisper of something living inside you. The ultimate question remains, are we truly thinking for ourselves? Or are we the perfect hosts for something that wants us exactly as we are, controlled, compliant, and unaware?